Going to say that's really bronze they're pouring?
That's right. It's hot enough to melt. It's 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit as you see it going in there. Hi there. I'm Sonny Fox, and Joan and Jimmy and I today are at the Modern Art Foundry in Astoria, New York. Now, last week we were at the studio of Jacques Lipschitz, world-famous sculptor, and we saw the process of creation of a work of art from the time he thought of it, you know, from his mind to the time it ended up. Remember, the last thing we saw was the sculpture in plaster. Now, of course, plaster is not a medium that will last for a long while. It doesn't have enough permanence. And what they want to do then is to change it into bronze. Now, that's why we have accepted Mr. Lipschitz's invitation to come here to find out how they cast a sculpture in bronze.
That's what we're doing now, Sonny, isn't it?
That's what they're doing right here. They were pouring that, but this is kind of in the middle of the process. It's called the lost wax process, if you remember, and it's thousands and thousands of years old. Now, Mr. Lipschitz is waiting for us in the forming room, so we better get on over there and meet him. There he is, Mr. Lipschitz.
Oh, how are you? How are
Fine.
you?
Good
Glad
to see you.
How are you, Mr. Fox?
Fine, thank you.
How are you, children?
See you again.
Well, I'm happy to see you here.
We had-
It's the same statue we saw in your studio last week, isn't it?
Yes, that's it, but only it's in wax. It's in wax, yes.
It's Pierrot, isn't it,
Yes,
Pierrot?
Pierrot à la clarinette, yes, that's it.
But I don't remember seeing any wax sculptures in
No,
your
but
studio.
you have seen the plaster. Here it is, the plaster. And we made it in wax. You remember, it's the lost wax process.
This is the wax that's going to be lost.
Yes, that's the wax that is going to be lost.
How do you do that? How does that happen?
Well, let better John Spring, which is taking care of this room, to explain you all the process. It's quite a complicated process, but ask him. Here he is.
Well, where will we meet you again, though?
Well, I will go to the finishing room, and you will find me over there. I have something interesting to show you over
Very
there.
good. We shall see you
Okay.
then. Now, just before we meet John Spring, Joan and Jimmy, I just want to remind you about this. What we are going to see here today is a process of taking the original plaster sculpture of the model, changing it into bronze without losing one fraction of any kind of an expression or line from the original model, turning it into bronze. Now, this is a very long and painstaking process, but keep in mind what we're trying to do, okay?
Okay.
Let's meet John Spring over here. Hey, Mr. Spring, this is
Sonny.
Joan and Jimmy.
Joan, Jimmy, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Meet you
Has
too.
Mr. Lipschitz gone into the process at all with you?
Well, Mr. Lipschitz said that you would have to make a wax copy of what the sculptor had in plaster.
That's correct, and this is where it all begins, right here. This is what we call a mother shell.
Mother shell. Huh?
That's right. It's made out of plaster, as you can see. And here it's been already separated, made in two halves so that we can separate it as we want.
Oh, could you separate it and show us
Surely.
what's in there?
Maddie, stand, please.
Better step back, John.
And look at the sculpture in there.
That's right. This is the original sculptor model that was brought to us by the sculptor. As you saw Mr. Lipschitz's Pierrot there. Now, what we have done here is place clay all around the model, down here, and build a plaster casing around it, the mother shell. Then we've taken, turned it over.
No, excuse me, but first that's got to get hard.
That's right. This sets firm and gets hard, and then we turn the whole thing over and place clay all over the whole thing, over the plaster model. And repeat the same thing with the plaster over the clay until it sets hard.
And then you have one big...
And we have one big
outer shell.
which is split so that we can open it.
All right, now after it's hard and set, what do you do?
Well, we take it apart like we did here, take the clay out, remove the clay, and put it back again. Will you put it back, Stan, Matty? We put it back together again so that we have the two halves together.
Looks like you're right back where you started.
Practically, but there's one difference. We have here now the plaster shell, the bottom plaster shell. Here we have the clay, and here we have the original sculptor's model.
In plaster.
In plaster, and right here is a big hollow empty space.
A hollow empty space?
That's right.
What's that for? What good is
Well,
that?
we are going to pour a gelatin in there. It's not the same type of gelatin your mother makes at home that you would eat. but it's a gelatin that we use here to get an impression.
Is that what these holes are for up here?
Right, these holes are for that. Now, right here, you see they're pouring the gelatin in another mold.
Now, Joe and Jimmy, see that fluid going in there?
Oh.
Remember what we were trying to do now? We're trying to take the exact replica of the statue and create it in bronze. Now, this is plastic enough medium. That is, it will run into all the hairlines and little nooks and crannies of the statue and fill it up so that we get a perfect impression of the statue, which is encased, you see, which is inside there. And, of course, what we've done is we've taken out not the wax, the clay.
Clay.
Yes,
That's
the
right.
clay.
Take the clay out.
And there's a space. And, of course, that's what's going into that space. Now, what happens after you pour it in there?
Well, we let it set overnight. The gelatin will harden and solidify, and then we turn it over, and we would, in other words, remove this clay that you see here and pour that half in gelatin. So what we have left after that sets again is 2 halves of gelatin, which is an impression of the sculptor's model.
Now, what would that look like?
Well, let's take a walk over here. We have one here that we're working on.
This has already been hardened and
This has
separated.
already been hardened and set. Now the men will take this off. Will you take that off, Matty? Yes. That's the 1/2 of mother shell, and here we have the gelatin, which is very flexible, very hard. Every little detail is in here that is in the original sculptor's model.
Well, now, and of course, you have another half with the front of the head.
That's right. We have that there also.
So now we have, John and Jimmy, you see, we have a mold from which we can recreate the sculpture, but not in plaster now. Now what are we going to make it in?
Well, right here now you see the man putting a red beeswax in there with a fine camel hair brush.
Is that real beeswax?
That's real beeswax.
Can you hold that up just a little straighter so
Surely.
we can see it? There we go.
See, he's putting this beeswax on to take every little impression, every little nook and cranny that wax runs in. And we have the exact opposite of what you see here then, the impression of the sculptor's model that was made in gelatin.
Now you see, this is how it dries immediately upon hitting. It solidifies. I see on this side you've already finished
That's
the
right.
process. How does
Here-
that look? Let's see.
Well, this is similar to that. This has already been prepared. This is the red beeswax right here, what you saw the man putting on here. This is the gelatin. This is your mother's shell. Now, this beeswax has taken a direct impression of the gelatin mold.
Now what happens after you've got your beeswax set in both sides?
Well, we put this together now. We'll let the men put this together and show you. They clamp the 2 halves together. You have the 2 halves of gelatin. You have your 2 halves of beeswax that were painted on, and they put steel clamps on it.
Now they're not starting to pour copper or bronze in there, are
No,
they?
not yet. This is something else.
What is it?
That's a wax, a brown wax, or a black wax as we call it.
Wow.
It's added for thickness and strength. They will fill that completely up to the top. You'll see it come up in a moment. And then they'll let it set for a few minutes.
Sure is gooey stuff.
Yes,
There
it
it
is.
comes.
There it is.
Oh.
Now, is this a pretty critical step?
Yes, it is, because they will watch it now till it sets around the edge. Now they pour the excess wax off. In other words, while that wax was in there, it took a thickness around the beeswax, the red beeswax. Took the thickness, which is very critical, because that thickness will be the thickness of the bronze casting.
In other words, the red beeswax will be the outside of the head,
That's
and this
correct.
will provide the body of, according to the width of how long you've let it set.
Correct. Correct.
Oh, then you'll have the wax head, I guess.
That's right. And that, when we open that and peel that gelatin off, that will be the wax head that will be lost.
Well, now, Joan and Jimmy, this is how long will that take?
A few moments it will take, and then we can open it.
All right, well, now, this is a good time then, I think, Joan and Jimmy, while we're waiting for the wax to harden, to tell you about a very exciting See It Now program, The Secret Life of Danny Kaye, which is being presented again by popular demand later today over most of these same stations.
See It Now Sunday, The Secret Life of Danny Kaye, one of the most widely acclaimed, most honored programs in the history of television, will be rebroadcast this Sunday on See It Now. Celebrate Halloween with Danny Kaye and all the children of the world on a 90-minute fun-filled 50,000-mile journey through England, France, Greece, Israel, Italy, Morocco, Nigeria, Spain, Turkey, and Yugoslavia on the television program that critics have hailed as one of the greatest of all time. Ambassador Danny Kaye performs this mission for the United Nations Children's Fund by talking, singing, dancing, and laughing his way into your hearts. On this rebroadcast of The Secret Life of Danny Kaye, he'll have a special message for all the school children who will participate in UNICEF's Trick or Treat program. Sunday, see it now on most of these stations, The Secret Life of Danny Kaye.
John, we were waiting for that brown wax to set. Is it set now?
Yes, I believe it is. The men are going to try and open it now, and we'll see what we have here.
Now,
I
there
think you'll
goes
be surprised.
the mother shell.
The mother shell goes off. Now we get the top gelatin off.
Wow.
Uh-huh. Here we have a half a head already. Now we'll get the other half out for you. Now we'll peel this gelatin off also, similar to what we did with the other model of the...
Lovely.
And there is a wax.
Now, Joan and Jimmy, you can see, what have we done so far? We've taken the original head in plaster, which the sculptor brought in, and we have now recreated it in exactly the same detail, every line of it, in wax. Now, this is not a solid piece of wax. Remember, the bronze statue is not solid. The bronze is hollow. And can we see...
Surely. Here we have the...
If you hold it this way, you probably get a better look at it.
That's right. Here we have the brown wax that was poured in before, as you saw the men doing it. Then here is the red beeswax. And as you can see, it is hollow in there also.
And it's just about, I don't know, maybe 3/16 of an inch thick.
Maybe 3/16 of an inch thick.
And that's here. If you hold it one more time like this, so we can all get a good look at the fact that it is, of course, hollow and warm, incidentally.
Yes, it is.
Still warm. All right, well now, Joan and Jimmy, incidentally, the fact that the bronze statues are not solid is due to a lot of technical reasons. What would be one of the important reasons that bronze statues are not just cast in one big piece?
Well, for one thing, the bronze weighs over 500 pounds a cubic foot. And you can see even a head this size would be awful heavy for anyone to lift and handle. It would be many, many tons if it were a big statue.
Well, so there you have the wax head.
Is that the wax that's going to get lost?
That's right, but before it does, I'd like you to step over here. We have something else going on which is very important. It has to be shown before you can realize what's going to happen before it gets lost.
Oh, what have you done to the poor man?
Well, it doesn't look quite like the other one, does it? Well, what we've actually done here, we've poured a plaster, filled the head up with a plaster core. Then we've put these wax rods on here. And I want you to know two things. Where these rods all come together on the cup, and where these two risers come out here.
Risers, you call these? They look like
Risers,
antenna.
They let gas and air out.
Oh, in other words,
we
then,
call
as
them risers.
your metal is going to go in there, this is going to provide passageway for the air to
For the
escape.
air to escape, that's
And these
right.
will be passageways eventually when they disappear for the molten metal.
For the metal to run into the cavity where the head was.
Now, what about these horrible-looking nails you've pierced this poor man's head with?
Well, those nails go right into the inside plaster, and they will hold the two plasters from moving.
The two plasters. Now, wait a minute. We have an inside plaster here. What happens now?
Well, I don't want to confuse you, but this will be covered with plaster again.
On the outside?
On the outside, so you have the two. Now, here is one over here that has already been covered with plaster.
Well, it's going to look less and less like a statue, isn't it, John Jimmy?
Sure does.
Yes,
It
it
doesn't look
does.
like anything a sculptor would bring into the
Well, it is, because if you know what you're looking at, Joan and Jimmy, they're inside, it's like a sandwich. You have a piece of plaster inside, you have a big piece of plaster outside, and right in the middle, the filling of the sandwich is that rubber wax head,
not rubber,
and the
that's
wax rods, and the
That's right.
nails are all in there, too. But you see, it's that wax which we have to lose, and where do we do that?
That goes into the next department. That's where they do the
In the foundry
metal
room?
work. That's right.
Very good. We shall go there. Thanks a lot, John.
You're welcome. Bye.
Now, Spiro, just ram that mold up nice and tight and take a little bit of sand at a time, so that we have the mold ready by the time the metal is ready. Boys, how is the metal coming? Is pretty near ready? All right, we are ready, almost ready over here. We have one mold ready here. We can pour it off any minute.
Excuse me. Hi there. This is
How
John
you do?
Spring, this is Joan, and this is Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy and Joan.
Is
So
your
nice
name-
to meet you.
Is your name John Spreen, too?
That's right. The John that you met before, that's my son in the molding department.
And you have another son here, too, don't
Oh,
you?
yeah, I have another son, Bob, who is in the finishing department, whom you will meet later.
Well, John C.'s just been giving us a rundown on the lost wax process, and we're almost ready to lose it, right?
Right.
What's happened so far, Jim? Do you remember?
Well, we've seen how you make a duplicate of what the sculptor had
Yeah.
in plaster in wax, and then filled it with plaster, and then covered it with plaster.
Oh, yeah, something like that mold over here?
Oh,
That's
the
right,
exact
that's right.
thing.
Oh, yeah. You see what happens when they bring that mold after in the foundry, they place it in the kiln.
Do you know what a kiln is, Joan and Jimmy?
Oh, I think it's a sort of an oven.
Yeah,
right?
that's just what it is. It's an oven, you know. The molds are placed in the kiln. We build the kiln all up, seal it tight, and you see, we have to tear it down each time that we have molds in. We have to tear it down, build it up again. And then when the oven is sealed completely like this one here, then we just light the fire on both sides.
And that gets pretty hot.
That gets pretty hot, about 1,200 degrees.
Golly.
Well, now, can you guess what happens to the wax in our sandwich when the temperature gets up to 1,200 degrees?
Well, I guess the wax must melt. That must be the lost wax.
That's right. See, the wax runs out through that channel over here through an opening provided in the mold.
Now, how long does it stay in here at 1,200
Oh,
degrees?
anywhere from 2 to 6 days.
Days?
That's right.
Well, why so long?
Well, it depends on the size of the mold. If the mold is very large, the fire has to penetrate to the center of the mold in order to burn the wax out.
What would happen if any wax was left in?
Any wax is in there or any dampness and you pour hot metal in it, that would just explode.
We saw how hot that metal is,
Yes,
too.
sir, you saw that. All right, well, now, how can you tell that the wax is all gone?
Well, we have a special method to tell how you take that wax.
Some kind of scientific instrument?
Oh, yeah, very scientific. There's a piece of copper tubing that we place in the bottom of the opening of the mold. And we just suck on it. Like that.
Well, how can you tell whether the wax is there or not?
Well, if there is any wax taste in your mouth, that means the mold is not completely burned out. We have to continue firing. But if it's clear, you don't taste anything at all.
Well, now, let's say that the wax is all melted and your kiln is cooled off and you actually have to rip
Then
down
we
the brick.
We rip the bricks down in front, take the molds out, some of them large mold by crane, and then we bring them over and place them on the floor, like this one, for instance, here, see?
Well, why are they packed in sand that way?
Well, they have to be packed in sand because if you would pour the metal just directly into the mold is not strong enough to take the pressure of the metal. It would break apart and the metal would run out.
Remember now, Joan and Jimmy, you're dealing with metal that's 2,200 degrees hot. And boy, you put that in, and you can imagine the pressure's exerted. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere near around
Well,
this.
next
That's
to
right.
the
That's,
carpet.
the thing. That's right. See, then the mold, the metal is poured in right through here, which you will see in just a minute.
Now, do you know where the metal is going, Joan and Jimmy?
Look, it goes down to those little, like, rods.
Yeah, because they've already melted, too, the
That's
wax
right,
rods.
at the same time as the
Yes,
other.
that left
They
holes,
sort of like-
openings,
tunnels.
passageways, right.
That's right.
And what else is melted? The whole wax?
The whole wax.
The head.
So there's just a space in there.
That's a hollow space which will be filled by metal. And you see that in a moment. They will pour the metal in. You see how it fills up. Yeah, get the metal over here, boys. See, now they draw on the metal from what we call a tilting furnace.
Sure is hot.
Yeah, it's
Green
2,200
and-
degrees.
Green and orange.
It's a tilting furnace so that you can pour off as many small molds as you wish with not using too big of crucibles. There they're bringing the metal over. You will see now how they pour the metal, stand on the side because that's very hot and you are liable to get burned.
What do they do there?
They're cleaning off the surface of the top surface of metal so that any dirt that is on top would not go in the mold. Otherwise you get a bad casting.
Uh-oh, let's get away.
You can feel the heat right from here.
So can I.
Now, you see, make sure that the metal on top is clean. And now they pour, see?
Wow.
Now, that goes right down to the bottom of the mold first, then rises up on the wick.
I see there's
See, the
some
gas is
I was
escaping
gonna
there,
s-
see?
remember the risers that we were shown?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
They've
there you
provided
can
little
see the
escape
mold is
hatches.
full.
They provided little escape hatches for the gases and the air.
It's awful hot around here now.
Well, now, how long does that take to cool off?
Oh, that solidifies immediately, but we will not remove it till about tomorrow morning, so that when they break up the outside of the mold, we make sure that they don't scratch it or mar it. piece of work.
What does the sculpture look like when it comes out?
Well, here's a piece that we cast this morning. It gives you an idea, you know.
It's a bison, isn't it?
It's
A buffalo?
bronze, your risers, your runners and your risers. And you see the metal goes down on these runners first, goes to the bottom of the work, and then it comes up on top, you know. And those are the risers that take the gases and any air out of it.
Well,
Is
you,
that-
you have to remove those now, don't you?
Oh, yeah, we have to remove that, you know, but that you will see where Bob and Mr. Lipschitz is waiting for you.
Fine. Well, we shall go over there and join them. Thanks very much. Mr.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Johnny, come here, please.
Yes, sir.
Bobby, look, please level that out and here too, because, you know... yes, please.
Mr. Lipschitz?
Oh,
we are
here you
returned.
are. Here you are.
We, I think, are a little the wiser about the secret, about the lost wax process.
Well, did you understand everything?
Well, I don't think I could build or make a sculpture, but I understand how they do it, I think.
Well,
How-
that's
Pretty good.
marvelous.
Now, what
So
goes
it's not
on in-
any more a secret for you.
What goes on in this room?
Well, here we are finishing. We are finishing. You see, Mr. Robert Spring, Bob as we call him, well, he is taking care of this room, of this
Fine. Then would you
finishing room.
mind explaining it
He
to us?
can explain you everything.
Very good.
Let's turn this around here.
Yeah.
Now, you remember when you had the bronze casting, the wax gates, the wax risers, and the wax columns turned to bronze. They all have been removed, cut off, filed down. Now, also, remember the nails?
Mm-hmm. Those
All
big
right.
nails, yes.
Now, we had to take those nails out. When we take those nails out, they leave holes, as you see here, and here, and here. They're holes. Now, we have to fill those holes with bronze. The same material, the same type of bronze this is cast out of. Now, for that, we make small pins. We thread a pin on here, like a little screw. Then we thread a hole here. And we screw this pin in the hole. Tighten it up, and then break it off.
This is an easy way of making screws.
And then we mat this down with 9 screws. And then we cut it off close to the casting. And then mat it down some more. And we continue on with that until this pin is finished off like the sculpture, which you'll see on this side. You want to step back there, Mr. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
You see now, this area here and this whole front area was the same as the back, with holes and pins. And we finish them down. And then this piece is finished this far, then the sculptor has to come, check it over. After it's checked over, we color the bronze.
Now, how's that done?
Well, that's done with acids and heat.
Heat?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, we have a torch and we have acids.
Do you have any other way of doing it?
Yes, I developed, but that's different colors. You can have a big variety of colors. I developed a very simple process of coloring, and if you want, I can show it.
Please.
Nice.
There's Piero, our friend.
Well,
And
here
bronze.
It's in bronze, you see. It's in bronze.
Now, what are you doing? Getting ready to pack them, send them
Well,
away?
no. We will color them. That's Excelsior, and you will see what we will do with it.
This is like the lost Excelsior process, huh?
Lost Excelsior process, that's right.
What are you going to do? We have to step back?
Yes, you better step back.
Looks like they're lighting a fire.
Oh, you will see.
You're burning it.
Yeah. More, we need more Excelsior.
There she goes. Now, what is this doing to the statue?
Well, you will see. You will see the result.
It seems to be making it darker.
Yes.
Now, let's move around here, Joan and Jimmy, and we can perhaps see what's happened to it.
Pretty.
It's what you would probably call burnished in a way.
Well, it is. It has a brown, light brown patina with some darkish colors, you see, and now...
You know, it would be fun if we could compare this with the original sculpture that
Oh,
came
well,
out of your studio, the
bring it.
plaster.
Please bring the plaster. You see, it's just the same thing, only, of course, it's enriched, because I worked over in wax, as you saw it, and you can see everywhere the traces even of my fingerprints.
And there it
has
is,
a
Joan
more
and Jimmy.
rich texture.
From the artist's
And
conception,
here-
the work in the plasticine, to the plaster, and finally to the finished bronze, which will last, we hope, for thousands of years.
Yeah, it can stay for a few thousand years, 5,000 years maybe.
We would like to
After it starts to be mineralized.
We would like to thank you very much for the privilege of spending these last 2 weeks with you, Mr. Lipschitz.
Well, it was my pleasure, really, my pleasure. Well, did you now penetrate into the mysteries of the lost wax process?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I
think
guess
we
so.
did pretty
Well,
well.
that's marvelous. And now, don't forget, you looked a lot. Now, I hope you learn to see.
And there sure are lots of things to see.
Well, that's marvelous.
Thank you
Marvelous.
very much. And will you please say, for Joan and Jimmy and myself, say goodbye to Lola for us.
I shall.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Goodbye.
Next week, Joan and Jimmy, we will be at Toronto, Canada, at the home of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the National Hockey League team, to find out about ice hockey, how it's played, meet some of the players. You'll have a chance to get on the ice and try it out yourself if you're game.
Yeah,
Are
I
ya?
guess so.
And we'll meet some of the youngsters who are in the Pee Wee leagues up there, who are about your age, who start playing hockey even then. And we'll actually see a game, a full scrimmage, before we leave up there at Toronto. Incidentally, if you have any suggestions, quickly, Joan, the address.
Let's take a trip, 485 Madison Avenue, New York, 22, New York.
We'll see you next week at Toronto. Bye.
Bye.
A trip is fun to take, so pick the place you wanna go, a trip we're gonna make. We can travel to a farm and see the farmer plow, help to feed the horses, maybe even milk a cow. Let's take a trip is fun to take, 'cause all around us there are things to see. So take the time to take a trip in your own town, and it's as easy as can be. Let's take a trip is fun to take, 'cause all around us there are things to see. So take the time to take a trip in your own town, and it's...
Bronze casting is an ancient art, developed at least 6,000 years ago in Asia. It flowered with Greek civilization, but was gradually lost with the collapse of the Roman Empire, and not revived until the 15th century. The oldest casting method is known as the lost wax process. It is called the lost wax process because it involves creating a wax copy of the work, encasing this with an inner and outer mold, then losing or melting out the wax. The empty cavity is then filled with metal, and the mold broken away. David Glasgow Farragut was the American Civil War admiral, known for his words, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." Unveiled in 1881, his heroic-sized statue was the first public commission of the American sculptor, Augustus St. Gaudens. A new cast is being created for the St. Gaudens National Historic Site. Bronze is being made by the Modern Art Foundry in Long Island City, New York. Bob Spring is the president of the foundry, which was established by his father in 1932. Although the foundry is constantly refining techniques, the basic method for the art of lost wax casting remains unchanged.
Now, to reproduce this into bronze in the lost wax process, we have to create a mold. When you have an intricate model like this, the best way to do it is to make a flexible mold. The flexible mold that is in very much use these days is a black toughy rubber mold. And the flexible rubber, after it pours and hardens, looks like this. All right, now what you have to envision, this is a negative of this. And it will fit exactly because it was poured immediately on the surface. You can see as you're applying the wax that it's cooling right away. When you paint the wax on the rubber here, you want to be able to get a fine coating. You know, when you paint the room and you see brush marks on it, you can do the same thing in wax. So if the wax is hot enough, you can do that. If the wax is cold, you'll get brush marks. And of course, the artist didn't make it with brush marks. With the red wax, he's to develop a very fine reproduction, a faithful reproduction of the negative rubber mold. After we will be adding another wax, and that purpose of that wax is to give us an even thickness, a total even thickness, because the wax pattern is what we're going to use for the bronze, and part of a good bronze casting is when you have an even thickness to the bronze casting. This is a very important thing to do to give you uniform waxes. You can see he's finished thickening up everything. He's going to start cleaning the wax from the rubber and also the wax from the plaster so that we get a good fit. We're going to now pour wax in here. Now, if you wiggle the wax here a little bit, you can see it forming a thickness on the side of the pot. Now, it's very important because that thickness that's forming there, we want to form inside the wax mold. Just a little bit more. We hope we have enough. Now the important thing is the mechanic has to judge on how thick this wax is forming over here. Again, in here it's hot, it's not setting. Over here it's setting, and it's creating a thickness. See inside how nice and smooth the wax is from the this is what we call slushing thickness. Now when he's finished with all this, because of the welding process, he's going to have to thicken this edge up here a little bit. When you weld, you have to have a little more meat in here. So this edge will be thickened up a little bit so that when the two edges are together and you weld them, they don't sink in on you. And it gives you a little more strength. These are wax columns. It's hard to see now, but eventually these will be the exit channels for this wax to melt out of a mold, which you don't even know is here yet. So just have a little patience and you'll see what happens. But these are all wax. Everything that he puts on now until the mold will be in wax, and eventually all that's going to melt out. Now, when we put it in the oven, this little wax thing here, which is now upside down, will go over an open channel in the oven. So the wax will melt out. This will melt away. All the wax that's in here will melt, will drain out through this drain hole. What he's doing, he's closing up the joint between the wax column and the screw-low and the joint between the two waxes. After, he's going to put a little flame on there so that seals. He's going to build a little wall up around here to the height of the top of the exit hole, and then he'll fill the inside in with liquid. That'll give us a flat top, which eventually will become the platform it stands on. this stage is finished, shakes a little bit to raise the air bubbles up. He knows where the screw is. When it gets hard, he will trim this off. Now the same process will be repeated, various shapes and forms on every wax that we make from the ferret. And if you would pull the shell off this way, it would create a pressure. So this is done so that the shell comes off on one side, and then with the proper pushing, squeezing, it comes off on the other side. So now we're in the hands and the mercy of the retoucher. You want the wax retouched as much as possible because that's what the bronze is going to be. The bronze is not going to be what the rubber mold was. It's not going to be what the model was. The bronze is going to be what this is. And even if all right, now in this room here we have the mold material, but we have the mold material in its basic elements. We have silica flour, which is very similar to face powder, and we have plaster of Paris, which is a similar mesh. Now these two will be combined with the water to make a liquid material which will go on the face of this mold. Eventually, when this goes in the oven, this will be encased in a mold. That mold will be put on in a liquid form. It'll harden up, and everything, this wax model and all the other necessities that we put on it that are made out of wax will melt out of this mold. Now the mold face material it's thick enough that we can stop using it completely. Now we mix in a little more material, which is a sort of a grout material, and we mix that in with the plaster instead of the silica, which makes a stronger material, which now will back up the face. So you'll see there's a little different color and a different texture to this material. Now we have the liquid mold on the outside, we have the wax, we have a core in the middle. That's all fine. When we melt the wax out, where the wax was, there's a space between the core and the mold. That space is hollow. If we want to prevent the core from moving, we put these nails. These are called core prints, core nails. They have all fancy names to it. Basically, they have only one purpose. Since they're embedded in the outer mold and they're embedded in the core, when the wax melts away or is lost, these nails keep the two molds apart. The nail has to correspond with the thickness of the core. If the core is very thin, you put a huge nail in it, you'll crack the core and you'll defeat the purpose of putting the nail in. Now we have the problem of bronze flow. The bronze has to enter the mold at a certain place. It has to fill the mold in a certain way. And the properties of the metal have to be taken into consideration. Now you see on this side of the wax pattern, she has already started our gating system and our in-run system. Bronze only will travel approximately 6 inches at a 1/4 inch thickness. So the object is to get metal to the bottom of the mold and let it slowly rise to the top of the mold, and as it's cooling on its way up is to feed hot metal in so that it stays hot. You only want it to cool when the whole mold is full. Try to envision, this is all enclosed in a mold, and this is all gone. These are channels now in the mold. They're no longer here, but they're a hole. The metal would come in here. It runs all the way down to the bottom of the mold. It gets to the bottom of the mold, it runs into the pattern. So as it fills up here, it fills up here, it fills up here, and the metal starts coming in here, they meet. This metal coming up here meets with this metal coming up here. You can see the way these gates are spread apart. They're spread apart, taking into consideration how much metal is supplied, how much heat there is, and to keep the metal in a steady temperature and a steady mixture condition. A good example would be if we look at the legs, which are already completely gated. This will be the entrance for the bronze here, this cup or sprue. The bronze will run down these empty channels all the way to the bottom of the wax pattern. The bronze will run out from there and it'll fill up this cavity. These other little set work of waxes here are an exhaust setup. If we just start this exhaust and trace it out, you'll find it comes all the way up to a nice big fat column here, and it goes out separate from where the metal is coming in. Now, you might ask, well, we got a little, looks like a little pear-shaped lump here, the pear-shaped lump over here. These are called rises, shrinkage lumps. When your molten metal is poured, it's expanded. When it cools, it shrinks. It can be measured. On a flat piece of bronze, it's 3/16 of an inch to a foot. When it shrinks down here, it has no problem. It pulls the metal from on top. But when it shrinks up on the top, it has no place to pull metal from. So it pulls metal from itself. It tears itself apart. It makes itself wholly like Swiss cheese. So what we do is this little pear-shaped object here is a reservoir of molten metal. So when this piece on top here needs metal to shrink, it takes the metal from this lump. All right, after they're finished here with this part, they will put boards around this, big boards. They will clamp the boards around, and then in the space between the board and the wall here, they will pour some more of this material until the mold comes into a rectangular block. Now this mold here is ready to go into an oven and be baked out. And if you notice on top here, all the gates and the in-runs are connected to the cup, and all the rises and exhausts are connected out here. All right, now we're in the foundry proper, where we do our castings and our burnout. We put the mold in the oven, close the oven up, burn it out at 1,000 degrees for about 8 days. When it comes out, the wax pattern that we had, the wax columns that we had, the wax cup, are all gone. Now all we have is an inner mold and an outer mold. Whatever was wax is hollow. This is the chamber. This is the hollow chamber that we have been trying to create to pour the molten bronze into. And of course the importance is that the molds are completely dried and all the wax is melted out. If the moisture wasn't driven out, when you pour the bronze in, the mold would literally explode. one of the problems in this type of casting is that the mold has to be destroyed to get the model out. So you get one mold, one casting. You can see, and now you get most of your rough mold off the surface. The mystery in the foundry is what takes place from once the wax is melted out and the metal is poured in. When you have molten metal running around at 1900 degrees, that's Fahrenheit, it has a little bit of a mind all its own. You have to try to direct it. And that's what all the skill is involved with the gating, the rises, and the venting. It's all to try to make this molten metal do what you want it to do. When they get done taking most of this plaster off, they then will use high pressure water to wash the rest of the plaster off. Then, as you'll see, it'll go into an acid bath and we'll get nice clean bronze when it comes out.
Now begins the process of finishing the surface of the bronze. Nail holes are filled, and the gates and any excess metal are removed. Imperfections are repaired, and the texture and details of the original work are recreated. Ammonium sulfide is applied to the surface. This deepens the color of the bronze and allows the details and highlights to be seen more clearly.
No casting comes out perfect, so the artisan has to follow the surrounding surfaces and actually become an expert forger. Now the man is doing the final finishing on the head, and he will then we'll take the whole bust in the other room where the rest of the statue is ready, and we'll start putting it together. So we've ground this side so that the welding has a place to grab. You just can't put two sides together and weld it. You gotta grind it so you have an opening like that and touch it, and then you fill that with weld. It's called your weld filler. This is actual welding. We're welding with the same alloy metal as we have here. So it's not a brazing or a solder, it's a welding. From the beginning of all the rubber molds, waxes, casting and everything else, we finally have a finished bronze, but almost finished. It has to be patinaed yet. This is one of the most skillful jobs in the place, is the patining. It takes years of practice, because to put the acid on and make a color is no problem, but to make a color that a customer wants is a very big problem. Explanation-wise, the patina is acid working on the bronze. Pat will put acid on the piece. That'll work with the bronze. It'll actually change the surface composition of the bronze to a new compound. It'll be a copper-based compound, and that compound will have a color. So if you're using a copper nitrate, the copper nitrate combines with the copper in the bronze, and you come up with a new copper compound, and it has a green color. If you add an iron nitrate to it, it gives it a brownish color. Ammonium sulfide makes it black. But this is a true patina in the sense that the surface metal actually changes.
Modern Art Foundry was established in 1932 by my grandfather, John Spring. We've been in business 70 years now. My father, Robert Spring, has been the president since the early 70s, and my sister Mary Jo and I are now in the process of taking it into the third generation of owners. We've always been owned, it's always been owned by the family. Being that we're 70 years old, there's a lot of artwork out there that we've worked on and a lot of different generations of people that have been involved with us. So you get different emotions. I mean, the piece that has is our sort of trademark piece is the Alice in Wonderland statue that's in Central Park. We made that in the 50s. My grandfather worked on that. My father worked on that. You know, I can take my children to that on the weekend, and they play on it. You see all the other kids playing on it. So there is a lot of emotion wrapped up in that sculpture there that we were involved in that. And there are a lot of pieces in New York. We have 4 or 5 pieces that we made that are in St. Patrick's Cathedral. The Spider last summer was there. And then in other cities, I just went to Washington, D.C. a few weekends ago for my nephew's graduation from college. And you know, there's 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces when you're just walking around. Oh, I think we did that. And you go and you look, and yeah, we did. We did it back in 1960-something or 70-something. So there's always a special feeling when you know you were involved with something like that. The focus of Art Foundry has always been on the artist and trying to give the artist what they want and not tell the artist that something can't be achieved. So we are very flexible and will try a lot of different ways to achieve what the artist wants. And I hope that makes us unique. There are probably other foundries that will do that as well, but we will always try. An artist comes to us and says, I want to do this, I want to do that, and initially you say, well, that's not really possible, or that's, you know, you got to make this change. Well, they don't want to make that change. They want it to be this. So we'll try to do everything we can to make that happen within the limitations of the process. But we try to limit those limitations so that we can serve the artist. The biggest characteristic or benefit of the lost wax process is the lost wax process allows you to do very intricate castings of objects. Mostly the term in the art world is to be able to have undercuts, which simply mean that you're able to have folds and textures that turn back on themselves. And in the lost wax process, you can attain all that detail relatively easily through the different methods of casting lost wax versus another process, the similar casting process called sand casting, where it's much more difficult to have of these undercuts, where you have to have simple forms that don't have a lot of undercuts so that the mold can open and close, whereas the lost wax process, the casting mold never opens. The wax is put into a cast, the mold is built around the wax pattern is de-waxed, metal is poured into it, and then the casting is actually broken out of that mold. So all those delicate finishes and undercuts can all be achieved. A lot of artists that do very technical or textured work will need to use the lost wax method because there's no other way that they can to get their work into bronze. So they will work in the plaster or clay, and they'll have different, if you think of a horse, say, with a rider on it, and he has a saddle, and he has bags on him, and maybe a hat and a rope, and all those different things all are three-dimensional, and they have different textures and movements going on. And in lost wax, you can achieve all that without major modifications. So sometimes you'll work with a sculptor that's new to the process, and they don't understand the process. And they actually, or not so much they don't understand, but they're not sure what it's going to give them. And again, they're giving you their work of art, and then you're bringing it through a process. And if they've never seen something in bronze, their own work in bronze, it may be a shock to them, or they may not understand, you know, that they've made it in clay, now it's in wax, they can work on it in wax. So sometimes you're working with new sculptors, just explaining the process and giving them what they want, even though they're not even sometimes sure what they want. So that's always sometimes a challenge too. The biggest thing I would actually say is to be flexible, or to be spontaneous with the process, because even though it's a process and you can replicate something identical, the most successful things that I've been involved in are actually when the artist has actually been a little bit more organic about it. And when the casting comes out, they're more flexible with the finishing. They're not looking to make, you know, an exact replica, especially if they're doing representational work of you know, of every little detail of a stitch of clothing or something like that. That there's much more organic nature to the process, and to use the process to grow. But sometimes it's actually the simplest job that gives you excitement. Occasionally we'll do something for someone that's not really an artist. Sometimes someone will come in. Recently we had a woman come in, and her son made this little cutout on foam board for his sister's bat mitzvah, and it was going to be the candle holder for that. And it was a very simple project, but we were able to make it, and they were so pleased that, you know, it was certainly satisfying at a very small level to be able to provide this service to someone. But I mean, it's the full range. I mean, we deal with people that are novice, and we deal with people that are internationally famous, and all the mix in between. So you know, a lot of the satisfaction comes in jobs that you've done what the artist needed you to do, and they appreciate that.